I think everyone just needs to relax a little bit, because these things that everyone's worrying so much, and all of this stuff is kind of new in the past 50 years or so, the saturated fat cholesterol thing. And I'll just go ahead and say it. The research that supposedly shows that saturated fat and cholesterol cause heart disease is not there. Like, I did psychological and brain science and research when I was an undergrad at Dartmouth, and what we specialize in is looking at the sort of research. And so when you take that eye and you look at where we got these conclusions from when it comes to saturated fat and cholesterol, it's all fabricated nonsense. Like, everyone is freaking out about cholesterol and saturated fat, and it turns out that it's all kind of unfounded. And so, frankly, I don't worry about it at all. I worry about eating real food, and the fact of the matter is that science is so far behind nature when it comes to this sort of thing. We can take the cookie and we can incinerate it, and we can measure how many calories are within that cookie. That says nothing about the actual cookie itself and what's in it and what happens to it when you eat it. So that's why it always comes back to eating real food. 50, 100 years ago, 10,000 years ago, we wouldn't be worried about cholesterol or saturated fat. So I encourage people, as long as they're eating real food, to not really concern themselves with those numbers too much.
Awesome. And, it's so funny to me, too, that the trade-off that you see most people do is they eat low fat, so instead they're going to eat, pastas and breads and, it's a low-fat gummy worm or whatever.
It's healthy.
It's healthy. Well, that happened to me personally. I was like 16 years old, and I thought I found the key to losing weight because I was a chubby kid. And it was, if it doesn't have fat in it, then you won't get fat. And so I remember buying a 5-pound bag of gummy worms and going to town.
Wow.
So it's wrong.
Yeah, that happens too on a more sinister level when you watch the commercials from Yoplait and Dannon and all these, like yogurts, which have zero fat, zero cholesterol, and you look at it, it has either, like 35 grams of soda in this tiny little 100-calorie yogurt, or it is packed with like these GMO, ridiculous artificial flavors and sweeteners. And this is something that's supposed to make you skinny and healthy,
Right,
and it's
right.
just absolute 100% crap. So,
while you mentioned it, you just mentioned GMOs, and I'm out of California, and the law just got denied, and I just wanted to touch on that. What's your take on GMOs?
Oh, I don't touch them. I just did a show about that with Jeffrey Smith, who did a wonderful documentary called Genetic Roulette, which really, if people don't know about GMOs, I would highly encourage you to learn about it. Don't take my word just to not eat them, because that's really hard. Actually, take a look at why not, because this stuff is freaky. And like I said, science is so far behind nature, we don't really know what we're trifling with right now, but I can say that in almost 100% of cases, and maybe 100% of cases, the primary reason that these foods are genetically modified is not for your health. It's to increase profit for the chemical companies, for the food manufacturers, and it's often detrimental at the price of your health. And so as far as, the California thing is a bummer, but that's what happens when Monsanto and all these other chemical companies can raise $47 million to put toward a misinformation campaign compared to $7 million, which is what, the anti-GMO labeling movement was able to raise. And so right now, I think people like you, other folks who are in these channels that aren't dominated by special interests, Monsanto's and the medias of the world, we can kind of spread this message, continue to lead healthy lives by example, and I think people will catch on that GMOs aren't something that we want. So I highly encourage people to kind of learn about all the freaky stuff that's in them. If I said it, you wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, it's wild stuff. Jeffrey Smith has got some really great information out there.
He does, yeah.
So you kind of touched briefly on the fact that you kind of wake up, but you don't have any breakfast, right? And so I thought breakfast was the most important meal of the day. What's your take on that?
I used to think so, too. I used to wake up in the morning and shove breakfast into my mouth, even though I wasn't that hungry, just because I thought it was the most important meal of the day and that my muscles would fall off as soon as I stopped eating everything. And Actually, I'm writing a book on fasting right now, a short book, and I just put together pictures of myself because I took pictures of my body before I started fasting, or really started incorporating it into my lifestyle, I should say, and now with fasting heavily incorporated into my lifestyle. And all I mean by fasting is just like skipping a meal every once in a while. Occasionally, maybe once a month, once every 2 months or so, I'll do a 24-hour eat nothing fast. But generally, it's just skipping a meal. So what these photos show is me putting on 15 to 20 pounds of pure muscle after I started fasting. Like,
wow.
Not only did my muscles not fall off, but they're way bigger now. I'm much stronger, and I feel better. I feel, as oddly as it sounds, like leaner. And you can kind of see it in my face. Like, I'll get puffed up if I overdo it for too long. You can kind of see that in bodybuilding circles too. If you overfeed for too long, then you just kind of like get puffy. You might get strong, but you also get kind of puffy. And so what this allows you to do is balance that out. You know, some days I eat a lot. I've always loved food. And other days, you know, when I'm not that hungry, I just don't eat that much. And that's fine. You know, if I can go, some days, you know, I won't even eat at all until 3 p.m., sometimes even 6 p.m. And it's not a big deal. As soon as I eat again, I'm like, wow, this food is delicious.
Right.
But I don't miss eating it for the rest of the time. It's actually kind of liberating.
That's awesome. I mean, I'm a huge fan of just kind of creating more adaptability in your body. And I'm obviously, I was being sarcastic because I really enjoy fasting too. It really stretching your body's limits, but in the best way you possibly can. And I think that's such a cool thing. It's so liberating to try fasting for the first time. And if it works for you, don't continue doing it if it doesn't work for you. But if it works for you, it's liberating to wake up and be able to just go on with your day. And then if you don't need to eat, you don't need to. You're not like everybody else who has hunger pains at 11 a.m. and starts losing energy.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Or they start losing their minds. I used to get really, you know, I was eating lots of carbs. I would get so cranky when I didn't eat. It was probably every 2 to 3 hours. Or else I'm a pretty like laid back, happy dude most of the time. But man, if I didn't get food, then I was just a 100% jerk.
That's really funny.
It's not like that anymore though, because I'm burning fat more than I'm burning carbs. So
sure, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's kind of the direction I want to go right now. Is people always think about, you got to have your carbs for fuel, you got to have your healthy whole grains. How would you get your energy if you don't have your carbohydrates? And your show is all about being a fat burning man. So what weight do you put towards the macronutrient ratios, and kind of how do you become a fat burning man rather than somebody who crashes every 3 hours?
Yeah. Eat lots of fat is the biggest way to do it. As crazy as that sounds, like I think the English language is problematic in so many ways, and the word fat is kind of a misnomer because, like you said, you think that when you eat fat, you'll get fat. But what happens is, for example, when you're fasting, you're burning fat. Like that's what you're burning. The vast majority of the time, if your body is well adapted to burn fat, that's what you're doing. You're kind of doing it behind the scenes, and that's taking fat directly out of your body. Or if you're consuming it, you're also eating fat. So if you're taking one of the cool things is medium chain triglycerides are a short chain fat to medium chain fat, which is found in coconut oil, and that's something that your brain can use as a fuel for kind of high performance tasks. So I'll spoon that into my mouth quite a bit, but I would say, like, if someone wants to get started with it, just go low carb for a while, and it doesn't need to be into ketosis, which is what a lot of people do. You know, like that's kind of a hardcore intervention that Atkins popularized in the 70s. You don't need to go less than 20 carbs a day into ketosis. You can just go like 50 to 100 net carbs a day, and over time your body will start to shift from burning tons of carbs to burning mostly fat. And it's difficult to describe if you haven't experienced it, but it's this energy that's sustained. You don't get these crazy ups and downs and irritability that you get when you're shoving carbs down your throat. You get this balance, which I would I would never turn back. I highly recommend people try it out.
Yeah, you guys got to give it a shot. There's that little period of time where it might be a little bit tough at first, but once you get kind of used to it, it's definitely liberating.
Right.
Well, we've talked a ton about nutrition and eating wild foods and stuff. What about your training? I know your training has evolved a lot over the years, just like your nutrition. Why don't you share a little bit about kind of where you started and kind of where you are now?